Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on what I think is the last day of the summer sessions of webinar. I want to say a huge thank you to Ashley for organising and also for inviting me to speak and share some of my recent exploration and experiences with the application OneNote. And that's what I'm going to be talking to you guys about today. How to use OneNote to make online portfolios, both for tutors and for students, and to be used within the classroom. Just to introduce myself, first of all, my name is Rachael, and I work in Blessington with the lovely staff and students in West Wicklow Youthreach. I've been there since 2015. My background is in biology, but at the moment I also teach maths and IT. I definitely want to preface this by saying that while I am interested in tech, and I was using an online platform in the centre before the lockdown started, I was actually using Google Classroom at the time, but I am by no means a tech expert. And actually everything that I will be discussing today is brand new to me since mid-March, when we all gathered our bits and pieces and left our centres. So I know Ashley is keeping an eye on the chat. So if anyone has any questions as we go along, please pop them in. And if there's anything I can't answer this morning, I'll make sure to come back to you and we can discuss further. So before I got into the discussion, particularly about OneNote, I did want to just refer, I suppose, to the context in which we've all found ourselves in recent months. I found this stat, so this is from the 25th of May this year, where there was countrywide school closures in 150 countries, and that was well over 1 billion students impacted by that. And obviously there's going to be consequences, both negative and positive, to that are, going to become apparent as time goes on. But one thing that is certain is that the lockdown is going to change education forever. I suppose it has accelerated and propelled us forward into the world of tech, and not just in education, but also in the entire economy and in all of the jobs that our students will be looking for in the future. They are going to need to be equipped with these skills even more so than before. I also found this quite interesting. So this was the difference in Microsoft Teams meetings usage a week apart, so pre and post lockdown essentially. And you can see how it absolutely exploded there by the end of March, up to, I think that's close to 3 billion minutes per day of Teams meetings online. And I know that we in KWETB are in there somewhere. It's been fantastic. Talking from my own experience in Youthreach, where we've had cluster groups, we've been able to collaborate, and we've had these webinars, and it's been a really, really nice way of kind of keeping in touch with people. And so we are getting there. We are getting used to Teams and all of its functionality. So while we're getting there with Teams, and we have obviously our email in Outlook, a lot of questions have come up around what platforms are best going forward for our students. And there's been an amazing showcase of different platforms over the last couple of weeks. One thing that seems to have been decided quite clearly going forward is that across the FET sector in KWETB, all of our students are going to have access to Microsoft 365. So they're all going to have issued KWETB email accounts, meaning that they will then be able to use all of these apps and their functionality. So I know for our centre at the moment, Teams, we are communicating all the time as a staff, but this is going to be new to our students. So I was thinking, seeing as this is going to be our virtual hub and it's going to be the hub that our students can use also, if I wanted to create folders online, it would be best to do it within the Microsoft 365 hub. So that's what got me onto looking at OneNote, which is there in our panel of apps, and also Class Notebook, which is very similar logo there, but it is actually a separate app. And I'm going to talk about both of those during this presentation. So where this started for me, I just wanted to pop these links in for everybody. One of my colleagues spotted Rachael, which is an organisation that promotes tech in education. They were doing some really good webinars at the beginning of the lockdown. And I went to one on creating e-portfolios with Microsoft, and I found it really useful. They also have their list of all of their webinars there. They're all recorded. So if anyone is interested, I would recommend those. And it was after attending those that I thought, okay, I think the first thing I'm going to try and do with the August assessment deadline looming for us in our centre was, can I create assessment portfolios within Microsoft, within OneNote, so that they're accessible for IV and EA remotely. So I'm going to talk about that first. So I have templates to go through of a sample tutor or assessor folder for the assessment period, and also of a sample student portfolio that I've put together. And then in the second half of the presentation, I'm going to show you OneNote for class notebooks. So how these portfolios can be used as a hub for your class, for your resources, but also for students to take notes and do their assignments all within Microsoft, and also working very closely with teams. So before I jump over to OneNote for a quick demo, for anyone who's not familiar with OneNote, it's organised very much like a rail binder or portfolio. So you have the notebook, and then within the notebook, you have sections which are marked with dividers. So they're very much like the dividers we would have in hard copy folders. And then within each of these sections, they can be subdivided into pages, and that's how you would organise that. So for my tutor template folder, which I'll show you properly in a moment, I have six of these sections marked with the dividers. And then within those 6 sections, it's broken down further into pages. One difference that I have in my student folders, which I'll show you in a second, is an additional kind of layer of organisation. So these folders also have section groups. So section groups are the same as sections, but they have a drop-down menu within them. So what I've done in my student folders is each student has a section group. So when you click on that student, it opens up subsections, and that has all of the dividers that would be typically in a student portfolio. So I'm going to jump over to OneNote and just show you those quickly. So this is the OneNote app, and as I said, here are my 6 sections. OneNote is organised from left to right, so sections here and then pages. So the first tab I have here is Portfolio Guide. So in here, for example, I have what typically would have been the cover page on a portfolio. Now that can be inserted here very simply by clicking Print Out, and you can select your file and insert it there. I also in this section have the assessor checklist. A really nice way of filling this, I found, was to use the draw function. So you can just click on any of the pens and tick those off as you go. And I think that really looks quite real and authentic. And obviously you can add to it and tick things off as you continue. Then I have a tab for the provisional results sheet, obviously for the component spec and modular descriptor, which always have to go in. And again, they were just inserted as printouts. So again, have your files anywhere and insert as a printout. Then the last 2 tabs here are procedures for assessment and assessment itself. So procedures for assessment, in here I have that organised for the documentation regarding things like reasonable accommodations, compassionate considerations. So I've put in a template here just to show you. So a really good idea for this, I thought, was with this documentation, which would usually be filled out in a centre or by a coordinator or a principal, and that you wouldn't want to be editing any further within OneNote, you can simply take a photograph. So I just took a photograph of this piece of paper and inserted it by clicking Insert Picture, and you'll get that original document in there as well. The assessment tab is the only tab really that between tutors will change in its contents. So obviously everybody would have their assessment schedule in. Then you could have other pages depending on the module. So you could have a brief, for example, and put in a brief. You could have your marking scheme. Obviously the pages there are going to very much depend on the module and how the tutor devises how to assess it. One really interesting thing here is I have inserted my assessment schedule here as a link. So what's brilliant about this is I have this document on my OneDrive. So let's have a look first. This is old dates. So this would have been from last year. So let's say I just wanted to update this folder for next year. So what I can do is open the document. I can update these dates. So let's just go with 2020. And let's leave the date for feedback blank for now, because let's just say I haven't decided when that's going to be yet. So I've updated that document itself. And if I just click out of that page for a second and click back in and let it reload, it should update for me. It's not, it's not going to do what I've asked it to do for my presentation. Let's see. Try one more time. Yeah, there we go. So as you can see there, it just takes a minute or two to sync. But in my portfolio now, it has been updated with the dates, which means that you can change your documentation, change your paperwork, but you don't actually have to worry about what's in your portfolio. It will be automatically updated. So the way to get that to work is to insert your documents as a link instead of a printout. And then that will sync with everything on your OneDrive. So I'm going to quickly just jump over then to the tutor, to the student folder. So as I said, the main difference here is that I have section groups. So each student here will have a drop-down menu. And within that, I have 4 different sections, and that's going to be identical for each student. So again, you would hope that these sections remain named the same for all tutors. And then within, again, the assessment section, this is what's going to be different between students. So it's going to have their work in here. So for example, I have popped in an exam there. So ways that you could do corrections on that. You could obviously correct it how you normally do and insert this as a picture. You can correct it within OneNote by drawing, as I've done. If you want, you can add text. So you could add boxes with text, change colors, sizes, all of the rest. And another excellent thing you can do is you can provide audio feedback. So insert and audio, you can give a recording of your feedback to the student, and it will be saved here within OneNote as well, which is really good in terms of providing evidence of feedback to students. So that's that. I'm going to show you a little bit more on giving feedback in the second half of the presentation. So if anyone has any questions on those, I'd be happy to chat to anyone about them. Obviously, I am by no means saying that that is the best way or the only way to do that. That's been developed in collaboration with my colleagues. And obviously there might be other ways that are better for other teams, and we might learn as we go as well. But it is a starting point, and it's been a really nice way to learn about OneNote and kind of the basics of what it offers. Just quickly, some of you might be wondering how to organise the paperwork for those portfolios. So again, there could be different ways of doing this, but what we have done as a team is we have got all of those templates, so the OneNote templates and also all of the templates for the documentation for the different folders, and they are on our SharePoint site. So what we are doing is from there, we are copying whatever templates we need to our own OneDrives and OneNotes. We are designing our own folders there. And then once it is completed, we're copying our completed folders back to our SharePoint into an IV submission folder so that it's there for IV and EA in a nice centralized location. So that's how we've decided to do that. Okay, I might take a quick check-in with Ashley and just see if there's any questions at this stage or if she has any comments. If there's anything I wasn't clear about, Ashley, please let me know.
That was fantastic, Rachel. Thank you so much.
No problem.
You know, I think one of the things with OneNote, you know, particularly if you're not familiar with its functionality or its features, it can seem so vast and actually terrifying, you know, or how could you possibly use this, or what could you do with it? And I think that's okay, because it is such a powerful tool. You know, it takes a bit of time to tap into the functionality of it, and even the difference between a OneNote notebook and then a OneNote class notebook. But I think you've made that very clear, and it will make more sense as you go through the class notebook functionality towards the end.
Perfect.
So great job so far, Rachel. Thank you so much.
No problem.
There's no questions there at the moment, so fire ahead.
That's grand. Perfect. Thanks, Ashley. Grand. So leading on from that, then I wanted to kind of delve in a little bit deeper and see how OneNote would work in terms of the class notebook. So there were some excellent webinars earlier in the series of webinars on Teams, and I'd really recommend going back and having a look at those if you can. So one thing that is fantastic is that if you make a class team, you will automatically have a class notebook generated. One thing just to point out, if you already have a class team set up, you should find your class notebook here within it. If you don't and you would like to, at the moment we have to organize that through coordinators. I certainly don't have the ability to set this up myself at the moment. So I would say you just need to kind of send an email and ask to have a class team set up for you, and then you will have access to this. So if I click here, so this is my class notebook. So once students are within Teams, all they have to do is click on the class notebook tab. And we have a template here that I have set up that I'm going to go through. But before I do that, I just wanted to show a really quick video from Microsoft Education, where they go through the kind of compatibility between OneNote Class Notebook and Teams.
OneNote Class Notebook acts like a digital classroom binder, giving you a place to organize course content and providing every student a private place to take notes. The Class Notebook tab is automatically added to your class team and lives in the General channel. You can start the setup process and be guided through a few steps to create a notebook for every student in this class. But for now, let's look at a class notebook that's already been made. As we dive in, remember that Class Notebook is organized left to right. These are sections. Sections in Class Notebook are just like dividers in a 3-ring binder. As we click through different sections, you'll see pages nested under them. The sections that automatically come with your Class Notebook are the collaboration space, where students can organize and create content together. As students work in this space, they may have questions or need to discuss a project. This they can easily do in a channel conversation. As a teacher, you can oversee work in the collaboration space and then provide support in channel conversations or private chats. Another section is the content library, where you can post important resources, handouts, and more for students to reference. All materials in this section are read-only and students can't edit them. Then, here are the private student notebooks. These are automatically created for each student in your class team. Only you and the individual student can see them. Students can use these personal notebooks to take notes, work on homework, and store research. It's a home base and prep space where they can develop their own work and keep thoughts organized. Plus, you can check in and provide guidance using one-on-one chat to answer questions or give feedback. This teacher has also chosen to add a teacher-only section, a little slice of solitude for planning lessons, developing content not quite ready for students, or anything else reserved for teacher eyes only. Need to manage your class notebook? Just select the Class Notebook tab in the ribbon to access it and make changes. Private work, collaboration, engaged conversations. Already your classroom currencies, now they've brought Class Notebook and Teams together. To study up on all things Microsoft Teams for Education, check out support.office.com/education.
Okie dokie. So just to reiterate what was kind of explained in the video there. So once you generate a class notebook, what's different about it compared to normal OneNote is you will automatically be provided with these 3 sections. So you're going to get a collaboration space where teachers and students can all create content together and that everybody has access to. You then have a content library where only the teachers can upload and edit content, but all students can see it. So it's a really good place to store resources and things like that. And then you also have the individual student notebooks. So each student who is part of your team will be assigned their own notebook, and only that student has access to that along with the teacher. Students can't see each other's notebooks, but as a teacher, you have access to all of them and you can see everything that's there. One other thing when I automatically made mine was I was also provided with that teacher only section. So I can show you all of that now. So again, here we're looking from left to right. So we have our sections and section groups here. So these welcome pages were automatically generated. So there's a welcome to class notebook page. There's also a frequently asked question page to help people navigate the notebook. And then I also inserted a Meet Your Teacher tab here. And what I did was I recorded a really quick Flipgrid video. Flipgrid is completely embeddable within the class notebook. So all I had to do was copy the link to where my video was and paste it here. And it comes up here within the screen and you're able to play videos within. Hi everybody, it's Rachel here. Welcome. That's quite enough of that. So then we have in our collaboration space. So this is a really, really good area for group work and getting classes to work together. So I've just put in a couple of examples here of things you can do. So another really good website for maths teachers is GeoGebra. It's also fully embeddable. So again, I found this activity that I wanted my students to complete together. And again, all I had to do was paste the link to that activity here and it comes up embedded within the notebook. So again, you're not sending students off with directions on how to go and get onto a different website to find certain activities. Another really simple thing I did, just found an image of a Sudoku template, simply copy and pasted it into the OneNote notebook. Here we have different people filling in numbers. A really useful thing you can do in the collaboration space is you can view the authors. So you can see who is contributing what to a group activity, which is really, really nice. You can see some of the things I put in here in terms of feedback and things. We have stickers and emojis and things like that to make it really user friendly. Another really good thing about the collaboration space is if you want to divide your class up into smaller groups, so not a whole class group activity, but into subgroups, it works really well for that. So I could insert another section here in my collaboration space. Let's say I'm just going to call it group 1. Okay. And so let's say I only want to give 2 of my 4 students access to this area. So all I need to do is go into my class notebook app on Microsoft 365 and click on Manage Notebooks. Click on the notebook that I'm interested in, and then we have here collaboration space permissions. And so within here then, for group 1, I can edit that so that only certain students get access. These are fake students. These are actually my lovely colleagues in West Wicklow Youthreach who are demoing big students for me. So thank you for doing that. So it's really, really useful also from that point of view. So you can have literally pairs or small groups working in the collaboration space, and those spaces are only viewable for those students that have access. So that's really, really nice as well. Okie dokie, so that's the collaboration space. So into the content library. So this is a very small content library, but it is a start. So I've put in a section here on algebra, for example. So remember here, this is where all of these resources are visible to all students, but they are not editable, which is really, really good to know. So here, for example, I know Ashley did an early webinar on Wakelet, and I know from talking to some of my colleagues, people are finding it really useful. Wakelet's also completely embeddable in here, so you can just copy the link to your Wakelet, paste the link in here, and it will pop up within your notebook. So this has just got a lot of different resources for algebra. Here, I just wanted to showcase some of the tags you can use in OneNote. So here I've made a checklist for students, and I'm asking them that as they progress through the work to tick off the learning outcomes as they go. So it's a nice way of them keeping track of their learning. These check boxes are available as tags. So in the home panel, you have tags here. There's lots of different options. You can mark things for all different reasons and reminders for yourself. So that at the moment is in the content library. So here it can sit and I can go through it with students and make sure that they understand what's been asked. But obviously for them to then use it and to tick off themselves, they would need that. They would need their own copy of that in their own student notebook. So the way of doing that is to distribute a page. So you can distribute a page from your content library. So if I just click on class notebook, distribute page, I am going to pop this into the learner's learning resources folder. So that will take about a minute, and what that will mean is that each student will have a copy of that checklist now in their own folder under learning resources, so they can edit that and update it as they go. Another really useful thing with distributing pages is you can distribute things to individual students or to groups. So if you had a group work that only certain people needed a resource, you can do that. And also if you have students who have particular interest in a particular area that you want to give them more information on, or students who need a little bit of extra support, you can use that individual distribution page to give people individualized notes and things like that. Okay. Here, I just want to demonstrate something really simple. So when we left our centre, my maths students did have printed copies of some of their assignment work to take home with them in a folder. So here I have just uploaded a soft copy of that so they can see it and be clear on the page that I'm referring to. And then I have added a section here where I am asking them to just upload images of their calculations and workings. So sometimes, you know, with some subjects, obviously having real pens and paper and pencils works better. So you do have the option there of students just taking a photograph and uploading their hard copy work there. Another thing that I wanted to demo that I guess is specific to maths, but it's really cool. There's a really amazing maths function in OneNote. So here I have just written in this quadratic equation. And if I highlight that equation and then click on the Maths tab, it's going to automatically change my handwritten ink into this equation. And from that, you're able to do lots of cool things. You're able to get it to generate quizzes. You're able to get it to solve the equations for you. It's a really amazing function for maths teachers. So I just wanted to mention it. And I know Ashley did demo it earlier this week as well. And then finally, another really simple example of something quite effective that you can do. So any videos from YouTube or Edpuzzle can be embedded directly in. So again, just copying the link. So what I have here is a task for students of watching a video and then answering questions that are associated with that video. So here, side by side, I have the video and the questions which I have made in Microsoft Forms. Again, I know there was a webinar on that, and you can simply go insert and you have forms here. So again, it's really easy for the student then. They have everything they need in one place, and it's really, really good from an accessibility point of view. So that's my content library at the moment. As I said, it's quite a small library, but it is a start. And obviously you can build on this as you go. It would probably take years to, you know, fill it with all of the kind of resources that you would want. But certainly, especially if it's for students who aren't used to working within OneNote or notebooks, it's no harm that it's small starting off. You know, make it kind of easy to navigate and keep it as simple as possible and add as you go. So as the video mentioned, there's also a teacher only section. So I do have that in this notebook also. So anything that's in here is only visible to me. So I have some resources for myself in here. Again, that's another Wakelet. And I have a PowerPoint that I am working on updating before I publish it for my students. Again, similar to how I showed you with a Word document earlier, if I edit this PowerPoint on my OneDrive, it will automatically sync those updates here. So again, you're not worrying about, oh, I've made changes to that PowerPoint, I need to go and take the old version out and replace it. That will all happen automatically, which is really, really nice. So then onto the student notebooks. So when you're setting up your class notebook at the beginning, you will be asked what sections you want to provide. So you can have as many as you need and you can name them however you would like. I have put things in here like learning resources, a tab for quizzes, QQI portfolio, which I'll come back to at the end, a tab for assignments, and a tab for class notes. So for example there, I'll just show you in one of the student folders in the class notes section. So this could be notes taken by a student during class. They can mark things as important, so things to remember for exams, and they can highlight things and organize it visually how they like and however suits them. I've already shown you how to distribute pages to populate these different sections. Another amazing feature that is really useful for students that I know Ashley demonstrated is the immersive reader. So again, I think it is in view. So immersive reader here will really help students in terms of being able to understand content. So I'm just going to click on this for a moment and see, will that demo it for me?
Example for exam. You purchased 10 items from a shop, and now you need plastic bags to carry them.
So that's brilliant. That will automatically do that for a student if required. Another brilliant resource in here is dictation. So here a student would be able to dictate some notes. So just say it out loud, and it's actually really, really good at translating that for you into text. So again, if people struggle with writing and things, that's really, really excellent. And then the last tab that I really wanted to draw people's attention to is the QQI portfolio tab. So obviously this year, in my making of the tutor and student assessment portfolios, I've been managing those, and the tutors have been managing those on students' behalf, because we are obviously not in centre, and it's been done under extreme circumstances. But going forward, you know, it's really important that the students have ownership over putting together their assessment folders. I know in our centre, like, a lot of time goes into that by students kind of sitting with tutors and organising those folders towards the end of the year. So here I have a tab for that within their class notebook, and I have given the pages the exact same names as what I have in my assessment folder. So when it comes to assessment time, the student, along with the tutor's direction, will have filled these tabs and have all of their assessment work and things in here. And then all that the tutor will need to do is copy this section from here into that assessment portfolio and combine all of the students together in one assessment portfolio for IV and EA. So that will serve that process really, really well and give students a lot of ownership over that process. One last thing just to look at. So I know in earlier webinars, people spoke about in a class team setting assignments and things like that. So if you have an assignment, so for example, let's have a look back in my content library. So we had that piece of assignment that students had when they left the centre. So let's say I wanted to formally issue that remotely as an assignment. I can go into my Teams app and open assignments. And when I am setting up the assignment, you obviously put in the title, the instructions, and then you can add resources. So you can add a resource directly from a class notebook. So here I could go to my content library, go to that particular piece of work, attach it, pick where I want that to come up. So obviously in the student folder, I'm going to want that to be in assignments, and click done. And so that would then send that piece of work to each student's folder, and it would be there then as an official assignment within Teams. So I'm going to quickly go back to my slides and just make sure I haven't missed anything. Okay, so I've mentioned the immersive reader, the dictation, the maths tool, that you can give a lot of individualized support and resources by pushing pages to individual students. You also, of course, have the individual chat function within Teams where you can collaborate and communicate with students individually as well as within a group. Feedback obviously can be provided in audio or written, drawn in or typed format, whatever people prefer. I've shown that a lot of the applications that have been demoed over the last couple of weeks are completely embeddable within OneNote. So Flipgrid videos, Wakelets, PowerPoints, YouTube videos, Edpuzzles, all of those can all find kind of a common home within your OneNote notebook. And that's so brilliant for streamlining everything for students as they get used to a more of a transition into technology. One other thing I did want to mention, because I know it was coming up for a lot of us and we had a lot of questions about it, in terms of whether to go ahead and use Teams or Moodle. I know Ashley has said that either can be used now going forward for the next academic year. And I guess the best advice is to just within your own centre to see what suits best for learners and staff, and to make, come to a consensus based on the specific needs of the service. If you use one, but you would like to use some features of the other, that is possible as well. So I know both Teams and Moodle have ways of embedding each other within the platforms. So, I mean, Teams is going to be used probably by all of us for all of our video chats anyway. So it probably would make sense to have some link between your Moodle page and Teams regardless. So you can make it a clean cut decision on one or the other, but also you don't have to. You can use both and you can link both so that it's more user friendly. So obviously there's lots of benefits to using ePortfolios. It's an amazing way of standardizing processes within centres, particularly around the QQI assessment. It's a really nice organized system for blended learning. We really have a one-stop shop now in Microsoft 365, which is going to be amazing for students. There's obvious environmental benefits with less printing. There's definitely time savings to be made. You can do things without needing hard copies and all of the kind of limitations that brings. It also means that we can work on things more securely remotely. So we don't have that fear of removing any documentation from centres. It means that we can access things securely from wherever we are. It also means that students can access things from wherever they are. And I know for us, like, it's really worked well for some students, and we've learned a lot over the period of working from home. Some people have really thrived with certain elements of it, and certainly, a lot of those elements will be maintained going forward, global pandemic or not. You also have the ability to easily provide and collate audio and handwritten and typed feedback, which is fantastic. And it's also brilliant in terms of having that evidence of feedback all in one place. And most importantly, I guess, it enhances teaching and learning, which is the key to everything that we are trying to achieve, and should always remain our focus. So I think that's everything. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if people want to get in touch with me after the webinar, I'm more than happy to discuss anything going forward. So thanks so much.
Rachel, thank you so much for bringing that together so clearly. And I think you made a tool that for some, when it seems very daunting, really accessible. So thank you for that. And we do have lots of questions here.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and fire some of them out, and we can have a chat about it.
Perfect.
When I ask them here. So the first one I'm going to pop out there, and I think you just covered it in your last slide very nicely, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah.
So what are the benefits of using OneNote Portfolio instead of OneDrive?
Okay, so I suppose they're very closely linked, and anything that's on your OneDrive in terms of documents can very simply be inserted into OneNote by pasting a link. So really it is a way of it looking like how a folder would look, like literally with those tabs, with an easier to follow format, and that you can edit on top of your documents as well then. So writing on top of things without modifying originals and things like that.
Absolutely. For me as well, just to come in on that with you.
Yeah.
There, one of the biggest pluses that I see to using OneNote kind of alongside OneDrive is that OneDrive can very quickly become a dumping ground. And unless you're really on top of your file management and your file structuring, you can very quickly have your really valuable resources or the documents that you need buried down rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And kind of, I know I myself have fallen into the trap of recreating something and then a month later finding it somewhere. And I would consider myself to be quite good and organized with file management.
Yeah.
Whereas when you have it in a OneNote, you can see everything. So everything becomes visible. You don't have to open folders upon folders to see the content that you have in front of you. And that for me that's the personal benefit to a teacher that it gives. The benefit that it gives when you're presenting for assessment, or for teaching and learning. You know, I think you've quantified them so well in that last slide. I'm not even going to go there. You know, but it is about the baby steps. And it's not something that I think you can bring in overnight and it will transform everything.
Yeah.
You know, introducing OneNote is a work in progress, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think, you know, start small, keep it simple. And really the first step is to just have a little bit of time to play with it with no pressure. And get, you know, just have a kind of feel around first. And I definitely think if it's, you know, if it's new to us, it's going to be completely new to students as well. And maybe the simpler the better to start with.
Great point and great advice, Rachel, absolutely 100%. I know myself kind of from when I was in Youthreach, it was really interesting actually. In the last couple of years, I've noticed students that would come in to me had actually used OneNote in their secondary school.
Okay.
So I think that will start to grow as well as time goes on. You know, as kind of schools are using Office 365 and OneNote as well.
Yeah.
So as they move up the ladder or the chain, I think we'll start to kind of, we will lose that need to actually train or help students or onboard them.
Yeah.
But again, that will take a bit of time.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question then. Can the class notebook be used for evidence of individual assessment when doing group work for QQI?
It could be. So you would have your group work carried out within that collaboration space, but obviously it could be set as an assignment, and however you designed your rubric, it could be graded individually. You also can then, once work is completed in the class notebook, you can copy any of those pages or sections out of class notebooks and into other notebooks. So if there was something you wanted to arrange differently and kind of display work in separate folders or in separate sections, that's absolutely doable. I hope that kind of answers that.
It does, and I think that brings us on to answering part of the next one as well.
Okay.
So do you use one class for learners to submit assessment? And if so, can you close off the deadline so that a learner cannot submit after the deadline?
You can, yeah, you can absolutely do that. So you can just basically, it's a tick box in the setup of the assignment so that it won't accept late submissions. Another thing you can do in the collaboration space, I know for definite, is you can lock it. So if group work is to end at a certain point, you can lock the collaboration space. So it kind of just saves it at a point in time where it's no longer editable. Yeah, you can do that.
The next question coming in there at the moment is, can the file be checked with plagiarism checkers? Now, I know the answer to this is yes.
But is it Turnitin, and do we have access to that?
You can actually do it with Turnitin, but there is also an integration with Urkund.
Okay.
Now, I don't actually know how it works yet. It's on my list to kind of explore and nail down, and it's something that I hope to do next week. I just haven't had a chance to do it during this 2-week period, so I will come back to people with that. But I do know that Urkund is available as an integration for Teams.
That would be brilliant. That would be huge.
Okay, so what was your approach in terms of onboarding students onto the platform, given that you are up against the clock?
So that is still to be done. So the folders that I have prepared for assessment have been assembled by myself. The class notebook, our students we've literally just got organised with their KWATB accounts. So over the next couple of weeks, we will be doing that onboarding, as you say. And we're certainly going to have to build in a couple of support classes at the beginning of the next academic year to kind of help navigate and get used to that. Like, I mean, our students have been using an online platform, but it's been through Google. So I know they're going to find this possibly a little bit frustrating at the beginning. but I think they're going to be blown away actually about how much they can do, all within Microsoft. So I'm looking forward to it. But no, that's still a challenge we have ahead. And any advice, Ashley, we'll take it.
That's something that's going to be there across the board, for a lot of centres, a lot of students, a lot of staff.
Yeah.
You know, and kind of from our end here, we are really looking at what we can do to support that, and whether that is to, you know, maybe look at a small suite of kind of, you know, bite-sized videos for student use.
Okay.
Or kind of, you know, running maybe some kind of a webinar or something like that. It is something that we're looking at the moment, and we are exploring it. We haven't finalized the actual details of it yet.
Yeah.
But what I would say to everybody is, you know, if you take it in small steps with your students, like I hope you do with yourself, you know, once you actually onboard, most of the learning happens as you start to use it.
Yeah.
You know, the biggest challenge with that is actually, you know, taking the first step. So once you do that, you know, I think that the benefits will really outweigh any of the possible challenges that will pop up.
Yeah, and we've talked about that a bit as a staff team in terms of how to, you know, organise support at the beginning of the academic year. And while, you know, it will be good to have kind of generic training sessions, you know, on how to use these platforms generally, it's also going to have to be built into our own subject classes as well. You know, like my class notebook might look different to somebody else's. And really it's going to have to come down to being subject specific to an extent, and we're just going to have to, you know, allow time for that at the beginning.
Absolutely, 100%. You've hit the nail on the head there with that, Rachel. I think some of that as well, though, comes back to our mindsets. You know, anytime new students come in, even if you're using pen and paper, whether you're using group activities, if you're in a science lab, if you're in a woodwork room, there is an element of onboarding no matter what you use.
Yeah.
You know, so I think if you open your mindset to kind of, this is just part of our induction, our onboarding, you know, getting students engaged. If you build it in that way and kind of think of it the same as onboarding them to using like a science lab or that woodwork room, or a workshop, whatever kind of, you know, is included in your general induction. If you build this in, and kind of go easy on yourself, but try to be very clear kind of with the instructions that you give, so that it makes sense. And the big thing is, like, if you're setting an assignment, or, you know, if you're using any of the tools, always try to preview the student view, so you get an idea of what they see on their end.
Okay, yeah, that's good advice.
And then, do we have any more questions? Let me see. So you're fast tracking people's knowledge, Rachel. Lots of thank yous and praise here, which is brilliant.
Thank you, guys.
Let me see. Yeah, a couple of questions around onboarding of students there, so I think we've answered that off. There was a quick question in there about, can you control the speed of immersive reader? So I answered that there with a yes, you full control to increase or decrease the speed.
Brilliant.
I think that's it. I don't have any new questions coming in, Rachel, but
Perfect.
I would just like to say, you know, a massive well done, because I sat down with you, I think it was about 4 weeks ago, somewhere in that ballpoint period. And, you know, I know you won't mind me saying this, Rachel, but at that point you were still Google Classroom somewhat in your head, you know.
Oh, very much so, yeah.
You know, so kind of to see what you have managed to achieve and put together and work through in kind of a 4 to 6 week period is incredible. You know, you're an inspiration to us all here. So thank you for making OneNote a little bit more accessible. And this video will be a great resource for staff as they approach it themselves.
Thanks a million, Ashley. It's been great.
Thanks a million again for presenting, Rachel. I would just quickly like to kind of note that the 12 p.m. session today, so the final session of the Summer Sessions Live, has changed a little bit in format. So we have decided to kind of open up the floor for questions, comments, you know, kind of a chat, anything that you would like to kind of discuss going forward that might help your practice, or, you know, we can look at, you know, what we might put in place working towards September. So if you have kind of 45 minutes to an hour, please do bring a coffee along and join us for a chat. The Teams meeting, you can find the link to join it on the PD Hub in Teams. If you cannot find that, if you send me a chat in Teams or an email, I will give you a direct link. But it is available there on the Summer Sessions channel in the PD Hub.
Perfect.
Okie dokie. So I think that wraps that up. Rachel, thank you again so much. Really, really appreciate your time and your expertise.
No problem. Thanks so much.